All right, this is 2-7, question number 1. I think that's the one that you asked about. The first thing, so it says sketch a graph by hand, but if you think about it, what we want to do is find all these things that they're asking for at the bottom of the problem first. So the intercepts, the vertical asymptotes, the horizontal asymptotes, then that will help us sketch the graph. So always start with factoring. So that would be 3x. Can't factor the top, but the bottom would factor into x minus 2x plus 1. So x times x would get you x squared. The outside would get you 1x. The inside would get you negative 2x. Ooh, I have my signs backwards. So that should be positive, and that should be negative. So that would be minus 1. And then last times last would be negative 3. I think I'm going to rewrite that just so we don't mess that up. So it would be plus 2 minus 1. Okay, now once you have it factored, you have no holes because you don't have any factors that cancel out or slash out. So this means both of these will be vertical asymptotes. Remember, anything that makes the denominator 0 is a discontinuity. So if that were set equal to 0, I would get x equals negative 2. So that's going to be a vertical asymptote. And if I set the other factor equal to 0, I get 1. That's going to be another vertical asymptote. So I know I have a vertical asymptote at negative 2 and 1. So if I look at these graphs, this one looks like it could have it at 1, but this does, yeah, that looks like it could have it at negative 2 and 1. So I might need some more information before I can pick a graph. So I'm going to think about finding these things. X-intercept and y-intercept. So x-intercept means what is the x value when y is 0. So if you think about a fraction, whenever you have a 0 in the numerator of any fraction, doesn't matter what you have on the bottom, the whole fraction is going to equal 0. So if I want to think what is going to make y 0, so I want to think about having a 0 here. Well, anything that makes my numerator 0 will make this entire fraction 0. So all I really need to do is set the numerator equal to 0. So my numerator is 3x. If I set that equal to 0 and I solve for x, I'm going to get x equals 0. So the x-intercept is 0, 0. So if I look at my graphs, this one doesn't have a point at 0, 0, so that can't be right. This one does, so that's a possibility. This one also does not have a point at 0, 0. This one does. So I just need to decide between these two graphs now. They both look like they have vertical asymptotes at 1 and negative 2. So let's find the next thing, the y-intercept. So for the y-intercept, that means x is 0. So again, I'm solving for y. Remember, f of x can be written for y when x is 0. Well, if I put a 0 in here and a 0 in here and a 0 in here, I'm going to have 0 over 0 plus 0 minus 2. But I'm going to have a 0 in the numerator. So the whole thing is going to equal 0. So my y-intercept is also at 0, 0. So that doesn't help me much because I already have that point. Vertical asymptotes are at negative 2 and 1. Horizontal asymptotes, maybe that will help. So horizontal asymptotes are where you look at the degree of the polynomial. So not the factored one, the original one. So the degree here on the top is 1 and the bottom is 2. So I have the case where I have small over big. if your degrees are small over big, then your horizontal asymptote is at y equals 0. So horizontal asymptote, y equals 0. All right, let's see. Horizontal asymptote, y equals 0. Remember, at the center, it's okay if I intersect my horizontal asymptote. It's more at the ends that I'm looking for. So this one, at the ends, they both look the same. So basically what I need to figure out here is, if you notice, the part that's different here is the center part. So if I check the point, let's say I can't check x equals 1 because that's where I have my vertical asymptote. If I check the point -1 and I get a negative y value, then it's this graph. If I check the point -1 and I get a positive y value, then it's this graph. So I'm going to go to my function here, and I'm going to solve for y when x is -1. So I would have 3 over -1. So I'm substituting a -1 in wherever there's an x. -1 squared plus -1 minus 2. So on top I'd have -3. -1 squared is 1 minus 1 minus 2. So that would be -3 over +1 and -1 is 0 over -2. So that would be +3 over 2. So I know I have the coordinate point over -1 up 3 over 2. So this graph right here, over -1 up 3 over 2, has that point. This graph over -1, it goes down, so it can't be this graph. So this is the correct graph. Hopefully that helps.